Hi lovelies! If this time of year you find yourself craving something light and fresh tasting, but still really filling, then you have come to the right place because today I am sharing my recipe for this absolutely amazing one-pot creamy orzo with goat cheese and asparagus. Beautiful spring flavors that I think you guys are absolutely going to adore. And of course, it all comes together really, really quickly. So there's a lot to love. Plus, it comes together all in one pot and saves me a ton of dishes. Always a good thing when you're busy with 2 kids. So I've got my nice big skillet heating up on the stove, and to that I'm just going to add some butter. Now you could use oil here as well, but I have to say there's really no substitute in my world for that rich flavor of butter. And just as soon as our butter is nice and melted, we are going to fire up some flavor, starting with some shallot. So if you don't have shallot, you could also do this with onion if you want to. I like shallot because the flavor is a little bit more mellow. And I'm also going to add a couple cloves of garlic to this. So I want tons of good flavor. I'm just gonna give those a minute or 2 to get nice and hot and bothered in that butter. And let me tell you, that combination of melted butter and shallot and garlic smells so incredible. It could be the base for pretty much any kind of dish. Now, just as soon as those shallots and garlic are nice and fragrant, we can go ahead and add our orzo to the pan. Now, I am using about 1.5 cups orzo, of orzo. If you wanted to go gluten-free with this recipe, you could also do this with rice instead and make a bit of a cheater's risotto. That would definitely work. Everyone in my house loves pasta, so orzo it is. I'm going to just toss that orzo with that shallot and that garlic, and then I want to go ahead and add even more great flavor here with a little splash of white wine. Now, for those of you who do not like cooking with wine, it's totally fine. You can leave it out. But I think it really adds a ton of beautiful depth to a dish like this. So I'm going to add maybe 1/4 cup or so is really all you need. We just want to stir that really well and let this cook up for another 1 to 2 minutes, just until the alcohol has a chance to evaporate and what you're left with is just the really beautiful flavor. And then it's time to add our broth to this. So I've opted for some chicken broth here. You could definitely do this with vegetable broth. If you wanted to keep this fully vegetarian, go right ahead. It's really about what you have in your pantry and your preferences. And at this point, all I want to do is bring that broth to a nice simmer. What I'll do then is reduce my heat to medium and let this cook away until almost all of the liquid has been absorbed by that orzo. So maybe say 7-8 minutes. Now at this point, you can see I've got just a little bit of liquid left in my pan, and that's a good thing because I'm going to be using that nice hot liquid to cook up my asparagus. You don't want to add your asparagus any sooner than this because you don't want it to overcook and get really mushy in your pot. You want it to retain a little bit of its crunch, but also to become nice and bright green and tender. This is a full bunch of asparagus. I just cut it into thirds, and I'm gonna let that cook up with my orzo. And this will need another maybe 2 or 3 minutes. At this point, you also really want to keep this moving because of course that starchy pasta really loves to stick to the bottom of your dish. So my asparagus looks amazing. It is time to finish this off. And to do that, I am going to be adding just a couple tablespoons of rich, tangy goat cheese. Now, if you're a goat cheese hater, don't sweat it. You can totally leave it out of this recipe. You could swap in some Parmesan cheese here if you wanted to, or even some cream cheese if you want that same tanginess, but without the earthiness would work. But goat cheese is perfect. What I love about it is that on top of the amazing flavor it imparts, it also melts down to be super, super creamy and dreamy. Oh yeah, look how rich that is. And it smells so good. I'm gonna get in here with a little bit of salt and pepper. Important to season things liberally. And then I also wanna hit this as a final step with some fresh parsley. Fresh herbs this time of year are always welcome, right? Get that all stirred in. And honestly, guys, that is it. A one-pot dinner that is ready in under 15 minutes. Now, you definitely have the option to serve this as a side dish with some salmon or some chicken or even some shrimp would work really well with it. But I'm serving it today as the main event, and I promise you, you will not feel like you are missing anything. It's hearty, it's satisfying, but it's also really fresh. I hope you guys love this recipe as much as I do and that you'll give it a try for yourselves. If you do, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Facebook me a photo because I love seeing your kitchen creations. Remember, this recipe, like all of my recipes, is linked below and featured on healthymealplans.com, our amazing meal planning site that allows you to browse more than 1,000 recipes, drag and drop them into your weekly meal plan, and automatically generate your grocery list for the week. I hope you will give it a try. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from.